How many times have you been struggling to find the right pot or pan in your kitchen corner cupboard? How often have you been surprised about what's even in there? Well, today I'm going to show you a blind kitchen corner cupboard solution that actually works. We all know the problem with corner cupboards. They're a great way of utilising the space that you'd otherwise lose in the corner, but they're very difficult to see what's there, much less access them easily. Now, there are various solutions on the market already. There are Lazy Susan pull-out shelves or magic corners. These are great when you're in the planning stage and relatively easy to install when the kitchen's going in. But what about after it's finished? Retrofitting items like these can be difficult, awkward, and very expensive. So what we're going to do is to replicate a magic corner solution. We're going to be using heavy-duty pull-out drawer runners for this, and I'll show you how that's going to work on this drawing. So the design is pretty straightforward. We have 4 boxes made from 12mm ply in a frame of 18mm plywood, and the base is also 18mm. The mechanical operation for this depends on 5 pairs of heavy-duty drawer runners. These I got from Amazon, but they're widely available. Here I've used 2 drawer runners to support the top right-hand box. Incidentally, I have a video that shows another great project for your kitchen, and I'll link that below. So here I'm cutting the plywood to size. First the 12mm, then the 18. Now I'm setting up a stop block on the miter saw, ready to cut the drawer components to length. And that's them all done. So I've cut a bunch of 13mm strips in oak, which I'm going to use to edge band the boxes. Okay, here are all the pieces ready to be mitered. Now we can't just cut them on the miter saw as they are because the gap in the fence is too wide. So I've made this little jig to support the work while we're cutting the miter. Firstly, I'll set the miter saw to 45 degrees, and then we'll put the jig in place and bring the blade down to make sure it's aligned with the pre-cut slot, keeping our hands well away from the trigger. Once it's set, I'll clamp it into place so it doesn't move around, and then I'll cut the miters at one end of each piece. The idea here is to align the corner of the miter with the corner of the work. Hold that in place with a piece of blue tape. Make sure you stretch it tightly, and this will clamp it on properly. Then adding in the long piece, we'll bring the miters together, making the adjustments in the corner as needed before securing that with blue tape in the same way. The natural stretch in the blue tape acts as a really strong clamp and is ideal for these kind of situations. And then we'll add some more pieces of tape to secure it in place while the glue dries. And that ought to be enough, but I've just noticed that there's a small gap where the top strip of wood's slightly bowed. So we're going to put another piece of tape on just to hold that in place. And there we are. So here are all the pieces glued up, taped up and waiting to dry. Once they're dry, it's over to the table saw again to trim off the excess from the front and back. Over to the router table, I'm installing a flush trim bit so we can trim the edge banding flush with the face. Then back to the table saw to reduce the thickness of the banding. Now we're going to trim the short end, and for this I'm going to use a stop block in conjunction with the fence on the table saw. Now it's important when you set this up that the work isn't in contact with the stop block and the blade at the same time. Otherwise this can lead to kickback and there should be a gap between the two. You'll see here from the side view that the work passes the end of the stop block before it hits the front of the blade. Now I'm starting to break down the 6mm plywood for the base panels, starting with a jigsaw. Then cut into final dimension on the table saw. And then we're going to set up the table saw blade to cut the grooves for the bottoms of the drawers, just setting the height and the distance from the fence to be the thickness of the base panel. We'll run each piece through the table saw once, then we can check to see if the base fits and adjust the fence slightly wider and run them all through again. And keep doing this until finally we get a perfect fit, and then we can run the rest of the balls through. And just give the edges a clean up with some sandpaper. Then we follow exactly the same process with the 18mm side panels. Now I'm making up the drawer boxes. The edges will be glued with my normal 10mm adhesive, and I'm going to add a few drops of CA glue to hold it together while the glue dries. Once we've assembled the box, we're going to reinforce the joints using some aluminium pins. And that's the first one done. Okay, so turns out I need two of the drawers to be no more than 350 deep, because what I've forgotten to do is to account for the fact that the depth of the post plus the depth of the door and handle next to it. So the drawers are actually got to come out 100mm past. You'll see what I mean when the project's finished. So long story short means that two of the drawer boxes I need to cut down by 50mm and then put a new back or front on it. It's all good. Top edge is all veneered and covered with the oak strip. So what we're going to do is veneer the front and the two sides. I'm going to veneer that with some walnut veneer, which will match the inside of the cupboard. But obviously these joints are just butt joints and glue. So that's not going to be strong enough for a drawer front, because you're going to be pulling on this all the time to open it. So these joints need reinforcing. So I'm going to reinforce it with some 3mm aluminium dowels, cut them to about 30mm long, put them inside so that it will sit down into the joint like that, and that will give it plenty of strength, then plenty of mechanical strength for when the drawer's opening and closing. Boxes are made from 12mm ply, so I need to come in, mark a line 6mm, mark in the middle, one at 25. Got some O3A thin super glue, CA glue, and they also have these thin nozzles which are great for getting glue into holes like that. It's like a hummingbird tongue. Pop that down to the end. and that one, and that one, and then tap him home. You see there how thin the veneer is on this plywood. Barely touched that, it's already gone through on the corner. Now I'll cut the veneer to size. Ideally, you'd veneer the plywood before you start breaking it down, but I only have these small 300 by 300 sheets of walnut veneer available at the moment. But the final result should still be good. Now it's time to glue the veneer onto the boxes. Making sure to cover the surface completely. Then lay the veneer up to the edge of the oak. Carefully flip it over and put a weight on it to hold it flat while it dries. Then clean up the edges. Another 7 to go. What we need to do now is to make up the box. It's going to hold the shelves that go on the inside of the cupboard. I've marked a line 12 mm up from the bottom of the outside piece. I'm going to drill 3 holes through. Do the same on the other side as well. Now for the first many draw runners. Nice and smoothly, and then this whole unit will go into the cupboard as one. I'll slide this back out of the way, fix it down. Now, how am I going to do that? I may end up just gluing it down. So it'll be fixed down in some way. I've got to work out how I'm going to do that, depending on how easy it is working in the cupboard, which obviously isn't very, because that's why I'm doing this in the first place. Pick the 18mm piece that we had before, going to line that up with the edges. So I've got 4 little casters, which are the right size to fit under here. so the wheels will support it and stop it tipping when it's at its maximum extension. We're in the home straight now. Here I'm marking and cutting out the hole for the corner post, which will support the right hand drawers. I'm using a clamp to support the drawer assembly. This is upside down at the moment to make sure the drawers are at the same height. Once the fixing hole's marked, I can remove the clamp, fix the runner into place. Now it's all together and working, I need to remove the drawers and get it installed in the kitchen. Wish me luck. Oh, got that.